Excellency Kamal Kishore, Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction and Head of the UNDRR. The Honorable Maria Antonia Yulo Loizaga, Secretary of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources of the Philippines. The Honorable Gilberto C. Teodoro Jr., Secretary of the Department of National Defense and Chair of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council of the Philippines. Good afternoon. Over these last few days, we have worked hard to ensure that we keep the promise we made in 2015 of accelerating the implementation of disaster risk reduction strategies and plans. Throughout this conference, we have exchanged knowledge, good practices, experiences, and even offers of help. And we have all been exposed to a wide range of opportunities to maximize impact towards resilience. The Sendai framework calls for better governance, investments in resilience, and a focus on disaster prevention. The Asia-Pacific region is one with the global community in recognizing the need for a broader and a more people-centered preventive approach to disaster risk reduction. We echo the call for policies and practices to be multi-hazard and multi-sectoral, inclusive and accessible in order to be efficient and effective. In this light, I am honored once again to acknowledge the visionary leadership of His Excellency President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and His Excellency SRSG Kamal Kishore. I would also like to acknowledge the co-chairs of the 2024 Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, Secretary Maria Antonia Yulo Loizaga and Secretary Gilberto C. Teodoro Jr. Join me in welcoming on stage Secretary Loizaga for her message.
Special Representative of the United Nations Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction and Head of UNDRR, Kamal Kishore, Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr., Ministers and Excellencies, esteemed delegates. As we come to the end of APMCDRR 2024, I would like to express our heartfelt thanks to the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction for the opportunity to host this regional platform on behalf of the Government of the Philippines. Our deepest appreciation to the more than 4,000 delegates representing various stakeholders from the Asia-Pacific and beyond for their invaluable contributions and for your engagement and enthusiasm. Our sincerest gratitude to our partners in the private sector, academia, civil society, and the international community. Without your support, this conference would not have come to fruition. Over the past few days, we have engaged in rather thought-provoking discussions, gained valuable insights, and obtained increased commitments to accelerating the implementation of the Sendai framework in the region. The knowledge and expertise shared and the good practices and goodwill, along with innovative solutions, have showcased that Asia and the Pacific can and will continue to lead in disaster risk reduction and resilience building, despite facing increasing risks, especially those brought about by climate change and environmental degradation. Let me now reflect on what we have achieved together and highlight 5 key points for accelerated actions. First, risk governance must be a shared responsibility by all sectors at all levels. The role of the public sector is fundamental in both creating an enabling environment for all stakeholders to deliver their shared responsibilities, establish inclusive disaster risk governance mechanisms, and adopting concrete structural and non-structural measures, including investments, to prevent the creation of new risk and reduce existing risk. Second, local action is essential to advance DRR, including active, meaningful participation of those at greatest risk. Enhancing local capacities to conduct risk assessments and develop and implement policies, plans, and programs and budgets for DRR, taking into account the particular needs at the local level, is extremely critical. Increasing access to finance at the local level and enhancing capacity for risk-informed investment are key. Third, disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation underscore the need to strengthen and protect ecological systems and biodiversity. The importance of ridge to reef, ecological integrity, and the role of biodiversity, nature-based solutions, and ecosystem health and services in building resilience is recognized as a practical, integrated, and sustainable approach to both DRR and CCA. Fourth, there are critical and strategic opportunities for the private sector to adopt and integrate DRR in business models, practices, and supply chains beyond business continuity planning and corporate social responsibility. These will have win-win benefits on both business and communities, and resilience and growth and public finances as well. Existing alliances for business, for DRR, and resilience need and can be widened through visionary business leaders and startups as well. Finally, implementing the Gender Action Plan requires investment in capacity building on the inclusion of women and girls and those of diverse genders at every level of decision-making in DRR. The Gender Action Plan to support implementation of the Sendai framework offers a set of practical recommended actions to substantially increase resource allocations, activities, and impacts of gender-responsive DRR. Gender stakeholders are called to support national and local authorities and all stakeholders in its overall implementation. All of these require international cooperation through novel and existing partnerships of regional and sub-regional entities, country-to-country support mechanisms, and international development partners, as well as enhanced financial mechanisms for capacity building, technical assistance, and technology transfer, particularly for countries in special situations, especially including the SIDS, the LDCs, and the LLDCs, as well as middle-income countries facing specific challenges. Before I close, I would like to express once again my utmost gratitude to the interagency committee that worked tirelessly for this conference. We have had a separate Thanksgiving prior to this. This has truly been an excellent demonstration of a whole-of-government effort and a whole-of-society effort as well, and of sharing responsibilities for disaster risk reduction. Let us bring the knowledge we have gained and act on the increased ambition we have set in our countries and communities to its fruition. Let us continue to work closely with each other and foster connections we have established at the APMCDRR of 2024. Together, we can have the promise triumph over perils. Together, we can surge to 2030 towards an inclusive, sustainable, and resilient Asia-Pacific for the present and for future generations to come. Mabuhay, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary Loizaga. May I now call on Secretary Teodoro for his message.
Excellencies, fellow members of the Cabinet, fellow workers in government, our APMCDRR APMCDRR 2024 family. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We now come to the conclusion of the 2024 Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. Throughout the week, we have heard from an encompassing spectrum of sectors on building disaster and climate-resilient communities. We hope that the conversations over the last 3 days have been meaningful and that all of us will leave these halls with insights that will be translated into concrete actions in our respective communities. I take this occasion to extend our warmest gratitude to all of you for contributing to the success of this conference. First of all, we thank His Excellency the President, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., for his strong leadership in leading the cause of CCA and DRR, not only in the Philippines, but worldwide. Second, we thank His Excellency Kamal Kishore for inviting us to host such an important regional gathering. We are encouraged by your recognition of the Philippine efforts in strengthening local resilience, and we look forward to continued collaboration with your agency in making our communities safer and more secure. We thank our co-chair, Secretary Maria Antonia Loizaga, who carried most of the burden in making this conference a success. A big hand for her, please. But all of us, by stepping out of our institutional silos, we have fostered deeper interagency coordination, which will extend beyond this conference to our broader efforts, towards broader efforts on disaster prevention, mitigation, preparedness, recovery, and response. To our domestic stakeholders, thank you for joining us in this endeavor. Natural and man-made calamities cannot be addressed by government alone. Hence, we appreciate your support for DRR initiatives at all levels of Philippine society. Our special thanks to our private sector sponsors, who not only backed up through their active participation this conference, but embraced the same enthusiastically, adding vibrance and importance and continuance to our discussions. We thank our host, local government, Mayor Imelda Calixto Rubiano, for hosting us in the city of Pasay. And most of all, we thank the delegations from more than 60 countries who traveled all the way to Manila for this conference. We know from experience that disasters cut across political boundaries. Thus, we are heartened by the diversity of the participants, representing governments in the Asia-Pacific and beyond. NGOs, intergovernmental organizations like the UN and ASEAN, academic institutions, and importantly too, our media partners. I wish you all safe travels as you return to your respective countries. In closing, this conference has allowed us to build bridges across government departments, sectors, and borders. The relationships we have nurtured here will advance regional and global initiatives on DRR and climate change adaptation, including the attainment of the Sendai Framework goals by 2030. On my part, I remain optimistic about a future in which we have stronger collective response to natural hazards among the other challenges we are facing, not only in the Philippines but throughout the region and throughout the world. Maraming salamat po, mabuhay, and a pleasant good afternoon to each and every one of you.
Teodoro. The Philippines is grateful for the trust of the UNDRR and for inviting our country to host this year's APMCDRR. We wish to take this opportunity to reaffirm how much we value multilateralism and the enduring strength of our relations with the United Nations. We are committed to deepening cooperation with our partners as we advance the resilience agenda and accelerate evidence-informed and inclusive DRR and climate action for Asia-Pacific and the world. In this light, I am pleased to call on the Special Representative of the UN Secretary-General for Disaster Risk Reduction and Head of the UNDRR, His Excellency Kamal Kishore.
Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr., Secretary Maria Antonia Yulo Loezaga, Ministers and Excellencies, representatives of the Government of the Philippines, esteemed delegates. The fact that we are here on the fourth day and there are thousands of exhausted smiles in this auditorium is the best indicator of how successful we've been in fostering a meaningful dialogue over the last few days. As we come to the close of this conference, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to all those who made it a success. First and foremost, His Excellency President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. for his personal interest and engagement, and the Government of the Philippines for the strong leadership on the topic of disaster risk reduction. Your commitment is an inspiring example for leaders across the world. Second, our co-chairs, Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. and Secretary Maria Antonia Yulo Loezaga, thank you very much. It's been so wonderful working with you and your teams. The organizing teams who work tirelessly with many other departments of the government and other government agencies who've ensured the success of this conference. I want to say something about the spirit of the Filipino people. I think your generosity, your kindness, your thoughtfulness has won hearts in this room, in this auditorium, and beyond. I think the kind of joy you can bring to every task you do is really contagious. I think this really gives me confidence that we will be all right. As humanity, if you can bring this spirit, so really, I applaud the Filipino spirit, the school children, the experts, the LOs who've been supporting us, security personnel, colleagues from scientific institutions, media teams. Each one of you have been a pleasure to work with, interact with. You've set a new benchmark for the Asian Ministerial Conferences on disaster risk reduction. There's a joyous spider here. Doesn't want to leave the conference. I think it is also a good opportunity to acknowledge the previous hosts of the APMCDRR since the adoption of the Sendai framework, who have fostered this tradition of this multi-stakeholder regional conferences. I would like to acknowledge Australia, Mongolia, and India, who have been the hosts of previous versions of this, editions of this conference. And of course, thank you to all the leaders who have come here, ministers, who have taken the time to spend almost the entire week to engage with this topic, this conversation. Participants who've traveled from across Asia-Pacific. It's a large region. You've come from far-off corners of the region to participate in this discussion. It includes national and local governments, international organizations, civil society colleagues, private sector, academia, and development partners. I would also like to thank my UN family colleagues, senior representation, colleagues from many country offices, many agencies who traveled here. We want to mimic your integrated imagination in the United Nations system as well. And we have come across, from the agriculture sector to health sector, we've brought them all together here. I can't finish this address without acknowledging and thanking my own UNDRR team led by Marco Toscano Rivalta. Thank you very much. I am very fortunate to have the opportunity to work with you. Thank you, everyone, for enriching our discussions with your views and ideas. And thank you for identifying so many ways we can expand cooperation in this region as part of our shared responsibility for a resilient future. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the week has been rich with ideas, insights, and commitments. The wealth of knowledge and innovations that exist across Asia-Pacific is a reminder of why this region leads the world in shaping the global disaster risk reduction agenda. We have worked to capture these contributions in the co-chair's statement, which I encourage you all to read. Without repeating what is in it and what Secretary Loizaga said earlier, allow me to share only 3 points. First, financing for disaster risk reduction and prevention needs to considerably expand. Whereas contingency financing remains important and pooled funds and insurance products need to increase to finance disaster recovery, it is imperative that we shift the balance towards prioritizing financing prevention and risk reduction before disasters occur. This means instituting predictable and annual allocations from national budgets where possible. For donor countries, this means dedicating a larger percentage of your development assistance to disaster risk reduction and offering more accessible climate financing for adaptation. Private capital can and should be further leveraged in addition to ensuring that all business investments strengthen rather than weaken climate and disaster resilience. Second, the success of the region in strengthening tsunami early warning systems since the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami gives me confidence that we can replicate this for other hazards too and all communities. This means our goal of protecting everyone on Earth through early warning systems is entirely achievable in a short time. However, closing the last mile of coverage everywhere requires political will, coordinated action, sustained support from development partners, and a truly inclusive approach. One that engages women, persons with disabilities, older persons, indigenous people, and local communities, and one that leverages their leadership, knowledge, and experience. Third, understanding disaster risk in all its dynamic dimensions needs to be fast-tracked together with a stronger accounting of loss and damage. This knowledge is foundational to designing risk reduction measures and to ensuring that the most at-risk people and assets are protected. We can achieve this through a combination of humble, time-tested solutions as well as high-tech solutions. On one end of the spectrum are means such as better protocols for the collection and management of disaggregated data and integrating local and traditional knowledge. And on the high-tech end, this means leveraging emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and machine learning to scale up analytics and forecasting models. For us to realize progress on these 3 areas and more, we need to strengthen our risk governance systems and normative frameworks to create an enabling environment for all sectors and members of society to participate and discharge the shared responsibility for building resilience now and for future generations. Speaking of which, I would like to take a moment to thank all the youth and children particularly the school children. Who took part in this conference at the conference venue, but also at other venues. I have been inspired by your energy, your positivity, and your dedication. This week, we celebrated the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, which was on the need to protect and empower children and youth. However, just because that day is behind us does not mean that our commitment to them should wane. Excellencies and friends, as we close the chapter on this successful ministerial, UNDRR will ensure that our deliberations here will inform the preparation for the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction, which will take place in June 2025 in Geneva. The challenges we face are interconnected, and the solutions we develop must be integrated. This means we must carry our message and ideas to other fora and processes to influence change. Specifically, I would like to flag a few important upcoming opportunities, starting with next month's UN Climate Change Conference in Baku, Azerbaijan, COP29. Then next year, there is the International Conference on Financing for Development. Very important that our discussion on financing disaster risk reduction is a part of that discussion. The World Summit for Social Development, all the inclusion issues must be embedded there as well. Inclusion in the context of disaster risk reduction. And the 69th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, which will review 30 years of progress since the Beijing Declaration. I hope you will make your voices heard at these platforms so we can integrate resilience building into all future development programs. With that, I want to thank you all for taking part in this conference, and I wish you safe travels home and a resilient year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Multilateralism and collaboration are key to addressing disaster risk and other challenges, not only at the national and regional levels, but globally. In June 2025, the Global Multi-Stakeholder Forum to review progress on the implementation of the Sendai Framework will be held in Geneva, Switzerland. At the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction, stakeholders will get together to share knowledge and discuss the latest developments and trends in reducing disaster risk, identify gaps, and make recommendations to further accelerate the implementation of the Sendai Framework. The 8th session of the Global Platform will be organized and convened by UNDRR and hosted by the Government of Switzerland. At this point, may I request His Excellency, Ambassador Nicholas Bruhl, to share more about the upcoming conference.
Secretary Dr. Teodoro, Secretary Loizaga, Mr. Kamal Kishore, representatives of the Government of the Philippines, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to deliver these remarks in the closing ceremony of the Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, APMCDRR, to you, and to also look ahead by inviting you to the upcoming Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction in June 2025, to be held in my country, in Switzerland, in Geneva. The past week has passed by quickly, filled with valuable insights and discussions around three key topics. First, practical solutions to enhance disaster risk reduction financing. Second, ensuring no one is left behind through gender-responsive and inclusive disaster risk governance. And thirdly, strengthening localization efforts and building resilience in both urban and rural settings. These insights, ladies and gentlemen, from the Asia-Pacific region will greatly enrich the discussions at the global platform in Geneva next year. I would like to congratulate the government of the Philippines and the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction for organizing such a successful conference, providing us all with technical insights, fostering new connections, and helping to charting new ways to advance disaster risk reduction across the whole region. The Asia-Pacific region, as we all know, remains highly vulnerable to natural hazards, with climate change serving as an aggravating factor, increasing both the frequency and intensity of these events in the years and decades to come. It is essential that we continue identifying emerging risks and work to mitigate them, always prioritizing the protection of the most vulnerable. Looking ahead to 2020 to host the 8th session of the Global Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction in Geneva in June. Since its inception in 2007, the Global Platform has brought together governments, UN agencies, NGOs, scientists, practitioners, and a broad range of stakeholders to review and discuss progress in disaster risk reduction. Having last hosted the Global Platform in Geneva in 2019, we are excited to once again welcome governments and stakeholders back to Switzerland at a critical juncture. With only 5 years remaining until the Sendai Framework and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development reach their conclusion, and just 2 years until the end of the time frame of the early warnings for all initiative in 2027, the GP 2025 will be a key forum to review and discuss the progress made on implementing the Sendai Framework. As the host and co-chair of the 8th session, Switzerland is committed to working closely with UNDRR and all participating countries to ensure a successful global platform. Our focus will be on the progress made in implementing the calls to action outlined in the political declaration of the UN General Assembly's midterm review of the Sendai Framework, while addressing remaining gaps and challenges. We are dedicated to ensuring that the global platform addresses the calls to action from the midterm review of the Sendai Framework with particular emphasis on the following points. First, accelerating action. We recognize, ladies and gentlemen, the need to identifying concrete solutions and convert them into actionable measures to correct the course and achieve the goals and targets of the Sendai Framework with a sense of urgency. The overall theme of the GP 2025, Every Day Counts, Act for Resilience Today, rightly conveys this urgency. Second, changing climate. We will work towards ensuring that the event is impactful and contributes to increasing coherence among global agendas. We also aim to minimize the event's environmental and carbon footprint while ensuring it fosters inclusion, representation, and equal participation. Switzerland will collaborate with all partners to ensure that the GP 2025 program highlights best practices and seeks solutions to strengthen synergies between the Sendai Framework, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Paris Agreement, and other relevant intergovernmental agreements. We encourage, ladies and gentlemen, all countries and stakeholders from the Asia-Pacific region to share key lessons learned and best practices at the Global Platform in Geneva for the benefit of the global community. We are confident that GP 2025 will offer valuable insights and recommendations to enhance our collective and individual actions on DRR. We look forward to welcoming you all in Geneva next year. Thank you so much. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Ambassador Brule. The government of the Philippines would like to thank its partners for their generous support for the APMCDRR, the Office of Senator Lauren Legarda, DTI and Design Center of the Philippines, Ayala Corporation, San Miguel Corporation, SM Prime, First Philippine Holdings Corporation, Maynilad, and the MVP Group, Aboitiz Power, International Container Terminal Services Incorporated, DMCI and DMCI Mining Corporation, Pilipinas Shell, Toyota, Jollibee Foods Corporation, Tourism Promotions Board, Century Pacific Food Incorporated, GIZ, UN Women, Philippine Transmarine Carriers Incorporated, UNIDO, Management Association of the Philippines, the Government of Canada, PLDT, Converge, Globe, Philippine Coffee Board Incorporated, McDonald's Philippines, and Philinvest Corporation. We would also like to thank our media partners, Radio CSR, EON, the Daily Tribune, the Philippine Star, the Philippine Daily Inquirer, Manila Bulletin, Island Living Channel, and Island Living Magazine. Thank you for your support.
There's about 4,000 participants here, learning a lot from what they do in Asia.
So we need to create warm shelters.
We do a lot of risk reductions and we have a lot of training curriculum and content.
ADPC has been doing wonderful projects in Pakistan.
Arise Philippines, they are doing an amazing job.
Standard operating procedures, etc. So it's a very good fit.
We want you to learn about disaster risk.
Going together, as is always, going together is always good.
And just to see how much more we need.
If we put a lot of hard work in doing that.
For this kind of activity to happen.
Encouraged to take the lead.
For the exchange of best practices.
Let's do it together.
We need that spirit of inclusivity with the people of the Pacific.
So today we're really proud to launch a new edition of the Cope Tsunami book.
I got to know new technologies from other countries.
Having that collaboration and learning from each other is quite important.
Share best practices and coordinate a robust and sustained regional response to the challenges we are facing, both as individual nations and as a collective whole.
As we do now, that our country's journey through prevention, recovery, and resilience may be shaped throughout and beyond our region, whilst we also learn from our neighbors' knowledge and experiences themselves.
Let us cooperate for the future to prevent risks from becoming disasters. To that end, the United Nations system, with our country teams and regional partners, stand ready to support all of you in your efforts.
Our disaster risk reduction efforts leave no one behind.
This conference presents us with a grand opportunity to send a powerful message to the world. The Asia-Pacific is not only prepared to overcome the trials of tomorrow, we are also ready to lead in disaster risk reduction and climate action.
your turn. Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Here's to a million more dreams for our country and our world. I close my eyes and I can see a world that's waiting up for me, that I call my own. Through the dark, through the door, through where no one's been before, but it feels like home. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say we've lost our minds. I don't care, so call us crazy. We could live in a world that we desire. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make. There's a house we could build. Every room inside is filled from things from far away. Special things I've compiled, each one there to make you smile on a rainy day. They can say it all sounds crazy. They can say we've lost our minds. I don't care, so call us crazy. Find a way to a world that we desire. Every night I lie in bed, the brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me awake. I think of what the world could be, a vision of the one I see. A million dreams is all it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make. However big, however small, let me be part of the flow. The brightest colors fill my head. A million dreams are keeping me for the world we're gonna make. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
For this last song, this is a powerful reminder that resilience has no limits. This song was requested especially for today. This is entitled No Boundaries. Seconds, hours, so many days. You know what you want, but how long can you wait? Every moment lasts forever. When you feel you've lost your way, what if my chances are already gone? Started believing that I could go on, but you give me one good reason to fight and never walk away. So here I am, still holding on. With every step you climb another mountain, every breath is harder to believe. You'll make it through the pain, to get through that day. Just when you think the road is going nowhere, just when you almost gave up on your feet, take it right and show you that there are no With every step you climb another mountain, every breath is harder to believe. With every step you climb another mountain, every breath is harder to believe. Through that there are no boundaries. With every breath is climb another mountain, every breath is harder to believe.
On behalf of the Philippine government, thank you for joining us at the 2024 Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. We are heartened by the unwavering efforts and continued dedication of everyone here today as we transform the future of our region and our people. We hope that the spirit of partnership, inclusivity, and resilience from this conference will continue as we go back to our homes. The Asia-Pacific region has shown the world that we can truly make a difference when we all come together and work towards a common goal. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po. Safe travels and mabuhay!